Hi, hello.
Hi.
Welcome to 345 Tech Talks. And today's episode is all about how you get started with AI. So I'm here with Danny. Danny is one of our team. He's in the Cloud Solutions team. You haven't seen him on the podcast before, but welcome, Danny.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me. And yeah, good to be here. And a really
And
interesting subject, actually.
yeah, cool. It's a fascinating subject, AI. And as you know, I'm Andrew. Hello. I'm a founder of 345 Technology. And I've been on all the podcasts so far, I think. So you all know me. So what we're going to do on the podcast is over the next few episodes, we're going to really be drilling into AI because it is such a fascinating subject. So um, this is the first one, how you get started with AI. So where do we start, Danny?
Well, I think, again, fascinating subject. I think somewhere is a subject where people maybe aren't looking or maybe are looking deep into it, but maybe are just sort of scratching the surface in terms of their thought processes. So I think it's a really interesting opportunity for us just to shed a little bit of light into how it works. So um, really, I think what we need to really start with is why AI, and why people could be using it, and why and how it could benefit them going forward. So yeah, why AI is my first question to you.
That's a great one, and I could glibly say start by saying AI is the defining technology of our generation. Which sounds like a sweeping statement, and it sounds like it's highfalutin, but actually it is true. Um, and the reason why AI is the defining technology is that it enables us to solve problems that we couldn't solve with traditional computing. And most people are using AI on a daily basis and they don't even know it. Hey Alexa, order paper clips. That's AI. It's starting to, Google Assistant, Cortana, the AI is starting to be embedded into things in our daily lives, and we're making use of it, and we don't even know it. But that is just that, that's the consumer end of AI, where AI is then changing the world elsewhere, or has the potential to change the world, is almost limitless. So some big problems that you can't solve with traditional programming, like speech, you just can't do, you can't really do speech recognition with traditional programming. It doesn't work. AI, it's like magic. Even looking at videos, recognizing things in videos, recognizing things in images. And also there's advanced analytics. So there's we've particularly sectors like retail have been doing a lot of statistical analysis for a long time, but there's limits to statistical analysis. In particular, um, if you've got clear statistical correlations, then yeah, use statistical methods, no problem. When you've got a whole load of data and it all looks really fuzzy because you've got a lot of noise, and you're trying to pick out a very small trend amongst lots of noise, statistical methods are really kind of poor at that, whereas AI is actually quite good. So that's where analytics suddenly has had a new lease of life with all that. There's all sorts of places where AI has really got the power to change and make just enormous changes in what we can do.
It's quite interesting because a lot of people will hear AI, and they hear a lot of people speak about AI, and it's starting to become a little bit, like you say, end user now. For example, phones, tablets, those types of things are using it every single day. I think what some people can get a little bit confused is certainly from a business angle, or even from a consumer angle, is that where would we start? Where would we start with AI? How does that process start to really start to benefit a business and its functions?
So, I mean, if we look at, let's talk first a little bit about what an AI journey might look like, and then we can maybe just drill into the first step of that in a bit more detail. So an AI journey, typically the first step to using AI in your products or using AI in your business is actually just to reuse someone else's AI. Because there's a whole load of pre-built services, and it's as simple as calling an API. So that is actually the thing that you can do now with having zero knowledge of AI is you can use an API that already has AI embedded in it. That is like, there's almost no excuse to not do that right now. The second step is to use someone else's AI, but to supply your own data with it. So, for example, let's say you've got facial recognition technology. You can use like like the face service that Microsoft do, but you can supply it with your own images. So you can say, okay, here's a photo, this is Danny. Here's a photo, this is Andrew, and it will learn that face against that name, or that face against that identity. And then so it's still a service that you're using, and it's still hosted, and it's still run by someone else, and it's still AI, but you don't really have to know about the AI. You just have to give it information, and it will learn from that, and you can, and as you use it, you can then start to say, who's this? And it'll say, oh, that photo is Danny. So that's probably the second thing, because again, you don't need to know how AI works. You don't need to know how to program it. You can just use it, but you have to give it your own data. So that's kind of step two. Step three is really when you're starting to build your own models, and this is kind of a bit of a step change. And I think one of the things that makes AI quite scary for people is that they think they've got to get to step three of building your own models is actually the first step, and it's not. It's always like the third part of the journey, which is so this is where you have a problem that you want to solve, and you've got to create your data sets to train that model. You've got to define, write the code for the model and decide what sort of neural network you're going to use, and do a training process on it, and throw your data at it, and then you have your own custom model that does something just for your situation. Now that, funnily enough, that is it's easier now than ever, but it's also easier than a lot of people think. But that's the third step, and then the fourth step is like the black belt, master AI kind of thing, which is where you're really finding new ways of doing stuff. You're finding, I say step three is using the kind of model technology that's already out there, but training it yourself. Step four is really defining new model technology, defining new ways of doing deep learning and solving, really hard problems in new ways. So, and again, there are relatively few people in that space. Obviously, all the big tech companies are there. Universities and research labs are there, and some really big and well-funded private companies are there. But on the whole, very that's really level four is kind of very big research base. Not as many people playing in that field. So so in terms of, so if we roll that right back, how do I get started on AI? Step one, call an API. So some of the examples of this, and this is literally, so let's, using APIs, what are the sort of things that we can use, that we can just use out of the box? Here's some examples. Optical character recognition. I mean, we're all familiar with that. You get some printed text, you scan it, and it translates it into text. So that's that's just there. It's available off the shelf. One of the things that's actually quite cool is you can take let's say you're on holiday and you take you're in New York and you take a photo of the Empire State Building. You can throw that in AI and it'll tell you where you are. It'll tell you where photos are taken by the landmarks in them, because someone's built an AI that's got all the landmarks, all the main landmarks in the world, and it will literally tell you where your photo is taken from by the landmarks in the picture. Similarly, it will tell you things like, if you've got a picture of a celebrity, it'll tell you who they are because someone's got a celebrity recognition thing. And okay, those are kind of consumery kind of things, but some other things that are maybe a bit more business focused is speech to text, for example. So let's say you need to, so if you are a let's say you're a regulated industry and you've got to you've got to record every call and analyze them and all that sort of thing. You can transcribe. You can use a speech to text service, and that will transcribe all your phone calls. You don't have to do anything. Let's say you want to do language translation, and you've got a so let's say someone gives a speech, and then you translate that to text. You translate that text to another language, and then you can do text to speech and get it to speak that in another language. That's just that whole thing of kind of, this is one of the things that's amazingly powerful, is it makes a lot of those human things really, really possible. That because that sort of thing, if I speak into this device and someone else actually hears a translated version of it, I mean, it's not long ago that was just science fiction.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You can do that. Yeah, you can get an app for that now. But it's and also for if you're a international business, for example, and you've got people in all different countries making company documents, but you can have those all translated across all the languages your company uses. So that you've got so someone makes a document in Germany, and then people in England read it in English. It's that sort of thing. And those are available literally off the shelf. You can just use them now. You don't even have to program them. You just have to connect them in.
And it's going to help with business efficiency. Ultimately, efficiency comes with cost saving. If you look at it that way around, if you start to look at full circle. It was interesting actually. You were saying about the type of businesses that are maybe a lot deeper with AI at the moment, and it tends to be, what it seems to be at the moment, are the bigger tech companies, and the higher, the bigger businesses. So where do you think most people are at the moment with their AI journey, if you like? Where are you seeing at the minute people that are maybe inquiring or a little bit inquisitive, or maybe just completely stepping away from it? I see most people at the moment. I mean, even I think consumer-wise, we're using it every day. So as you say, end user, we use it every day, and 9 times out of 10 we probably don't realize it. But from a business perspective, where do you think people are at the moment?
Again, that's a really good question, and I suppose the answer, which is it depends, and the reason it depends, it depends very much on what sector you're in. So some businesses are using it a lot. So some sectors. So for example, if you look at like financial markets, the trading in financial markets, something like, I'm not sure what the exact stats are now, but upwards of 80% of financial trades are done by AI. So if you've got a pension fund that's investing, your money in various things, the chances are that the investment decisions are being made by an AI bot.
Yeah.
That's looking at how because again, one of the things that, going back to the statistical analysis stuff and that sort of thing, one of the things that AI is really good at is taking a very, very wide range of complex inputs and distilling that into decisions, and decisions typically are buy or sell. And you can look at, and people are building AI models with all these sorts of things. What's the weather today? Is what's the rate of inflation? What's the exchange rates doing? What's what are all the various what are all the other various stocks doing? What are bonds doing? And then picking out decisions on that based, buy or sell based on that. So that's a really massive area where, so AI in financial markets that's quite mature. It's increasingly we're seeing AI being used in a lot of areas, particularly. I mean, some of the really exciting stuff is in medicine, particularly diagnosis. I mean, I think there's I think Microsoft were running an advert recently where they were taking photos of people's retinas and telling and diagnosing whether they had eye problems and needed treatment. Similarly, there's AI is being used to look at, for example, images of microscope images of cells and telling you whether they're cancerous or not. That sort of thing. That's really kind of exciting area of AI. And again, one of the things here is that these are generally very well funded big institutions that are doing this. Yeah. As we go down to the smaller, the smaller or less, or people with less cash sloshing around, a lot of people are thinking about it. A lot of people kind of know. I say the vast majority, probably 80% plus, 80 or 90% of companies aren't really using AI embedded into their business yet. But there's probably about 15% are really thinking about it. They're planning it, maybe doing pilot projects. But there's quite a small number of people that are actually doing it in terms of really jumping on board and grasping it with both hands.
Yeah.
Obviously, between that, in terms of the small companies that are using it, a lot of the startups, because they can build a product around some particular application of AI. But on the whole, it's almost everyone's there, and they kind of know there's something here, but actually what they need is just a little bit of help taking the first few steps.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It's interesting because we're going to do a number of these episodes now, just based around AI, and we're going to get a lot deeper into how that works. I don't want to get too deep into it at the moment, and I'm quite looking forward to our next episode when we start to talk about how it actually works. So yeah, it's been really interesting just to hear the real sort of entry level of AI and who's using it and what they're doing with it. And I'm looking forward to, and hopefully everyone else will be as well, looking forward to seeing some real deep projects that potentially can be working for AI at the moment. So thank you for that.
That's great. So and thanks to everyone for listening. So I've been Andrew, this is Danny, and we've been doing the 345 Tech Talks podcast. And we look forward to the next episode where we'll talk a bit more about what a model is and how it works.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
All right, catch you next time. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.